Starfield's Shattered Space is just 6 days away at the time of releasing this video. So damn close, and I'm massively excited for it. Over the past few days, we've seen so many things from the Bethesda team, including a revamp of their website itself, going over some new things and some lore that we may not know about the House Varuun. So there's loads of stuff on there going over their origins, how they've come about, and where they are today, which is really quite cool, and I like that. So if you're not somebody that is hunting down the lore in the game, this would be really beneficial to you. And if you are even doing that and you've missed a few things, there may be a few things here that you may not know. There's been a few little bits of fan art popping up, there's been some clips that they've posted. Everything about House Varuun is out and about right now, and we're going to go over everything today. If that sounds good, subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the video, and stick around for much more Starfield. We'll be going over the DLC when it launches in full in just a few days' time. And first things first is Bethesda's website itself. They've updated, as you can see here, this is the Shattered Space sort of launch page, and they've updated that with a few little things at the bottom here. So the overview, which we have seen already, and this just goes over the new story expansion for Starfield, Bethesda Game Studios' epic role-playing game and the first new universe in more than 25 years. A mysterious power stirs in the city of Dazra on House Varuun's hidden homeworld. Investigate a frightening cosmic threat and explore a new planet, find unique weapons, spacesuits and gear in this all-new adventure. Now, if you don't know what Shattered Space entails, everything about it is in this video here in the top right-hand corner. I'd highly recommend checking it out. It goes over everything that we know so far and what has been confirmed by the developers as to what will be in this. No theories, just facts. Very exciting. There's some really cool stuff coming. And then they also updated with this fellow part here. Follow the serpent's path. Now, as you can see, nothing comes up until you scroll down, and then it is the timeline. Now, we've seen this timeline when the game first launched, but not in full, focusing around House Varuun. So we'll have a little bit of a look and see what the timeline says. So the first part is 2190. The colony ship Archimedes departs for deep space from Mars orbit, and contact is lost during the voyage. The Archimedes arrives in the previously uncharted Kavannik system. A passenger named Yinan Varuun claims to have encountered something during the final grav jump, which he later reveals to be the Great Serpent, and slowly gains a devoted following. So 2191, after the Archimedes has been deserted in deep space, they slowly start to become their own colony and religion, if you will. So sounds pretty cool. I do love the idea of sort of like a massive cult that we're going to investigate. But from little tidbits in the game, it does seem like a lot of them are branched off nutties, crazies, and can sometimes be interpreted as the actual bad guys in certain situations. But from what we've seen so far, it doesn't seem that way. It just seems like they're lost from civilization. They're 200 years out of what is going on in the world now. So quite interesting to see. Then in 2193, the colonization of Kavannik IB is underway, with Yinan Varuun leading the effort instead of the intended colonial council. He names the newly founded capital city Dazra. In gratitude, the people rename their moon the Varuun Kai. Then in 2197, the Kavannik Colonial Council disbands, placing full control in Yinan Varuun's hands, and he begins restructuring society, grouping families into noble houses, Malin and Kadik, and others under his leadership. Now, these are the houses that are vying for control in Shattered Space. Now, we do have decisions to make. Will we be vying with any of these guys, or will we give control back to Yinan Varuun? The leader is currently missing, and it's our job to find him, and we believe he's going to be hiding in the mysterious council. Then in the year 2200, any pretense of separation of the church and state within House Varuun is banished, and all serve the Great Serpent. So definitely becomes a cult following. Then in 2207, members of House Varuun raise concerns about dwindling supplies, and Yinan orders a series of grav drive experiments to reach out to the Great Serpent. Then in 2230, first contact with House Varuun is made. 2230, 40 years after the Archimedes disappeared from the settled systems, a ship appears in the Volley system transmitting the Archimedes transponder code. announces itself as the morning, the flagship of House Varuun. Diplomatic relations are established with major factions and corporations, but behind the scenes, House Varuun is gathering information, armaments, and ships, pretty much building up their own colony and their own civilization. And then 10 years later, in 2240, after a decade of peace, House Varuun abruptly cuts off all communication with the settled systems, and the Bloody Serpent's crusade begins. Then 26 years later, in 2236, Varuun dies, and his son, Yavek Varuun, assumes control and ends the Serpent's crusade. Most members of the House Varuun return to their home, divided on the new direction. Now this is where things start to become more interesting and start to form a divide in the Serpent's path and the followers of House Varuun. Things definitely seem to become more fractured, and that's when it starts to get a little bit dicey, but in their own system, rather than being out there in the settled systems. 7 years later, 2270, Yurek's twin brother Yandar publicly opposes him and House Varuun's new policy of isolation. Tensions then begin between Varuun and Meline, reaching a breaking point. Just 4 years later, in 2274, House Meline officially splits from House Varuun and becomes the source of the Varuun Zealots, terrorizing the people of the settled systems. Now those are the guys that we come across in the settled systems in some of those higher planet areas that can be a bit of a beast, but they have some of the best rewards to go after. And then a while later, in 2298, Yurek Varuun dies and his son Anasko ascends to the role of Speaker for the Great Serpent. Just 3 years after that, in 2302, Anasko initiates a secret research program centered around grav drive technology, and its methods and applications are privately referred to as unorthodox. Then, in 2330, the House Varuun star station, the Oracle, appears in the settled systems with a broadcasting distress signal. So that is obviously where the grav drive experiment has gone horribly wrong, which may have something to do with the unorthodox applications and methods that they're using for the grav drive technology, and that is where we come in to House Varuun and where the DLC begins. So I'm very excited to see how this will go. What do you guys think? Are you excited for the DLC? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, that is not everything that we've seen. So far, we've seen loads and loads of cool stuff all over the Bethesda Twitter pages. So let's have a little bit of a look into that. Now, one of the more recent things that they put out is an animated sort of video which was really quite cool. And this was published just a few hours before I recorded this video. As you can see, Bethesda UK 18 hours ago. When a catastrophe wipes out a massive chunk of Varuunkai's capital city, the people of House Varuun are left struggling to pick up the pieces. So let's have a little bit of a watch of this. It's 2.5 minutes long. Let's check it out. So that was quite cool. Very exciting. Looks awesome. Shows you basically how the grav drive experiment went wrong. It looked like they were sort of praising things there, and definitely very cultish. Now, I'm not really a fan of anime, so for me that was, yeah, it was alright. Showed a little bit of cool stuff. But for those that are fans of stuff like that, that's definitely going to be right up your street. And apparently that is part 2 of 3 parts there. Now, basically the gist of that is that the grav drive experiment has basically destroyed the capital city of Dazra and split it off into sections. Now, the goal when you turn up is to rebuild Dazra, rebuild the civilization and get people back together and decide the fate and the future of House Varuun. Now, there's also been tons of sort of data logs, like the data slates that we find in-game. As you can see here, 2298, Yarek's son, Anasco, ascended to Speaker of House Varuun, but he has since secluded himself in the Scaled Citadel, which is where he was when the experiment basically went wrong, and that's how we have to figure out how to get in there, I'd assume, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. So there's loads of little bits like this, so if you do want to check those out, I will do those in a separate video. There's tons and tons of these, so let me know in the comments what you think. Would you like to see that in a separate video? A breakdown of what all of these are. These are really, really cool, and they do tie in slightly with the timeline. But there's quite a lot of them and a lot to break through. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Would you like a separate video with all of these data slates? For now, though, we are going to wrap that one up there. That is the history of House Varuun and where it is up to this point. Will you be playing Starfield Shattered Space on its launch? Let me know in the comments. Are you excited? Let me know down below. For now, though, I've been Cowboy. You've been awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon with some more Starfield Shattered Space.